Yeah, let me ask you this. I have said this many times. I don't think that everything that's illegal is not necessarily immoral. And I've said this, I've said it from, the stage in church. I said, I have no moral issue whatsoever with stealing tax money from the government. I'm being honest. I would not lose a night's sleep in doing it. I won't do it because I'm accountable now to God and to my family. I don't want to put them in trouble. I don't want to make mistakes like that. People rely on me for a lot of things. But morally, I don't have a problem with it. And I'm being honest. And I often wonder to myself, I say, well, why don't you have a problem with it? It's illegal. You're not supposed to be doing it. You're supposed to abide by the law. And like I said, I won't do it. But I don't have a moral issue with it. So I don't know where that puts me at times. Is that still the old me, or is that justified? Because I believe the government is corrupt. I mean, I read about it every day. I just wrote a book, Mafia Democracy, about the government.
Yeah, well, maybe you can't fight corruption with corruption. Maybe that just doesn't work. Even if your fundamental point is accurate, and maybe that's part of the ethos of turning the other cheek, which is a very complicated thing to think through, right? Because it can look like weakness, that's for sure. And I think often when people do it, it is weakness. It's not out of moral virtue, but it can be. I think if you turn the other cheek and you don't have to, well, then maybe that's something that's ethical. And I do think it's a dicey thing to fight corruption with corruption. And maybe that was part of the problem with you regarding the police as enemies, and then being willing to engage in criminal enterprise in some sense for revenge, is that even though to whatever degree your supposition was correct, the manner in which you chose to fight wasn't productive. It was just going to make the problem worse.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Another thing, I have this issue with my wife. Maybe you can help me there too. My father always taught me, he said, Michael, don't ever lie to hurt somebody. But if you have to lie to help somebody, that's okay. And I've lived by that code throughout my life. I'm not going to lie to hurt somebody, but I'll definitely lie to defend somebody and help somebody. And my wife said, a lie is a lie. It's wrong. And I try to explain it. I said, well, wait a second. If I had to protect our son from something that he did, would you want me to just give him up if he was wrong? Or should I protect him? I said, my instinct is to protect him. I don't know how to do it any other way. I said, I couldn't do it. And she has a problem with that.
I think you can find yourself in situations where the best alternative that confronts you is to lie about something. But then I would say, in all likelihood, there was a whole series of micro lies that put you in that circumstance. And so you have to be hyper awake to make truth always work for the good. There's a poet in Canada, Leonard Cohen, and he said, there's no decent place to stand in a massacre. And the idea would be, well, by the time you're in the massacre, you've made so many moral errors that all you have are variant forms of hell around you. There's lesser hells and greater hells, but that's it. And I think very often when people are called upon to lie in the service of something positive, they've already compromised themselves so badly in 50 ways that that's the best alternative that lays open to them. I think your wife is fundamentally right. I also think, though, that sometimes it's your best bet. There's a classic example. Let's say if you were in Nazi Germany and you had Jews hiding up in your attic, and the Nazis came to the door and they said, do you have any unwarranted people living in your household, unauthorized people? Well, if you weren't going to lie, you'd say yes, and then those people would die. But then I would say, well, 10 years ago, you should have said something about the Nazis when they were first starting to gain power, and you didn't. And now you're in this hellish situation where you have to lie for the good. And that means that you have already put yourself in a place that's not tenable. And so that's how it looks to me.
Interesting. That makes sense.